As the world quiets and the stars begin to shimmer in the velvet night, imagine yourself standing on the rugged cliffs of Dover, the salty breeze whispering tales of a bygone era. The waves below crash softly, each one carrying echoes of a vast empire that once stretched across continents, its sails catching the winds of ambition, conquest, and destiny. This is the story of the British Empire, a saga woven from threads of exploration, power, and human struggle. A tale that shaped the modern world while leaving shadows that linger still. Tonight, we embark on a journey through time, drifting through the centuries as we explore the rise, reach, and eventual twilight of an empire that once claimed the sun never set upon its lands. Picture the cobblestone streets of London, where merchants haggled over spices from distant lands, and the creak of wooden ships in harbors carried dreams of wealth and dominion. From the rolling hills of England to the sun-scorched plains of India, from the icy waters of the Atlantic to the vibrant markets of Africa, the British Empire was a tapestry of triumph and tragedy, woven with the lives of kings, colonists, and those who resisted their rule. This video is crafted for those who seek to drift into sleep, lulled by the gentle cadence of history, as we unravel the story of the Britishers, a people whose ambition reshaped the globe. This is not a tale of mere dates or battles, but a vivid journey through the human heart of an empire, the dreams that fueled it, the conflicts that defined it, and the legacy that endures. So, find a comfortable place, let your eyes grow heavy, and allow the whispers of the past to guide you into a restful slumber. Hello, my name is Sherry, and welcome to my channel. So let's begin. As the night settles around you, imagine a small island nation, its shores kissed by the restless waves of the North Sea. It is the late 16th century, and England, a land of rolling green hills and bustling market towns, stands at the edge of a great unknown. The air is thick with the scent of damp wool and wood smoke, and in the taverns of London, sailors spin tales of distant lands, places where gold glimmers in rivers and spices perfume the air. This is a time when the world feels vast, uncharted, and brimming with possibility, and England, under the steady hand of Queen Elizabeth I, is stirring with ambition. The seeds of what will become the British Empire are being sown, not in grand palaces, but in the creaking hulls of ships and the dreams of explorers. Picture the docks of Plymouth, where the tang of salt and tar fills the air. Wooden vessels, their sails patched and weathered, bob gently in the harbor, their crews whispering of voyages beyond the horizon. The age of exploration has gripped Europe, and England, though smaller than its rivals Spain and Portugal, is eager to claim its share of the world's riches. Spain's galleons return laden with gold from the Americas, while Portuguese traders weave through the spice routes of the East. Yet Elizabeth, with her fiery red hair and sharper mind, sees opportunity where others see only risk. She knows that England's future lies not in its fields, but in the uncharted waters that stretch beyond the cliffs. The Queen's court is a hive of ambition, where men like Sir Walter Raleigh and Sir Francis Drake dream of glory. Raleigh, with his poet's heart and adventurer's spirit, speaks of a new world where England might plant its flag. Drake, a sea dog with a glint in his eye, circles the globe, plundering Spanish ships and returning with tales of distant shores. These men are not mere sailors, they are the vanguard of a nation waking to its potential. Elizabeth, ever cautious yet bold, grants them charters, blessings, and ships, urging them to seek out new lands, not just for wealth, but for power. The world, she knows, belongs to those who dare to claim it. But the path is not easy. The seas are treacherous, filled with storms that can swallow ships whole, and the Spanish, with their mighty armada, guard their claims fiercely. In 1588, the Spanish Armada sails toward England, a fleet of towering ships meant to crush this upstart nation. Picture the tension in the air as bonfires are lit along the coast, signaling the enemy's approach. The English, outnumbered and outgunned, rely on cunning and courage. Drake, legend has it, pauses to finish a game of bowls before setting sail, his confidence a beacon for his men. In the end, storms and English fire ships scatter the armada, and England emerges not just victorious, but emboldened. The sea, once a barrier, becomes a highway to empire. Across the Atlantic, the first tentative steps are taken. In 1584, Raleigh sponsors an expedition to a land he names Virginia, after his Virgin Queen. The colony at Roanoke is a flicker of hope, a small cluster of wooden huts nestled among whispering pines. The settlers, men and women seeking fortune or freedom, face a land both beautiful and unforgiving. They meet the native peoples, the Algonquian, whose lives are woven into the forests and rivers. At first, there is trade, beads for furs, stories for stories, but misunderstandings grow like weeds. The colonists, unprepared for the harsh winters and scarce resources, vanish into history's shadows, leaving behind only the word Croton carved into a tree. The mystery of their fate lingers, a whisper of the challenges that lie ahead. Yet failure does not deter the English. The defeat of the Armada and the promise of wealth fuel new ventures. Merchants in London, their ledgers filled with dreams of profit, form companies to fund expeditions. The Muscovy Company seeks trade with Russia. The Levant Company reaches toward the silks of the Ottoman Empire. But it is the East India Company, chartered in 1600, that will plant the deepest roots. Its ships, laden with wool and ambition, sail for the spice-laden shores of Asia, where markets brim with nutmeg, cloves, and the promise of unimaginable wealth. These early voyages are not just about trade, they are the first threads in a tapestry that will one day span the globe. As you drift deeper into the night, imagine those ships cutting through the waves, their lanterns glowing like stars against the dark. The men aboard are not just sailors, they are bearers of a nation's destiny, driven by a hunger for discovery and dominion. England, once a small player on Europe's stage, is beginning to dream of something greater, an empire that will stretch across oceans, binding distant lands under its flag. But as the first colonies take root, questions linger in the salt-laden air. What will this empire become? Will it bring glory, or will it sow the seeds of conflict that will one day unravel it? Close your eyes, and let the waves carry you to the next chapter of this unfolding story. As the night deepens and your breath slows, picture yourself standing on the edge of a vast, untamed land, where the forest hums with secrets and the horizon stretches beyond imagination. It is the early 17th century, and the waves that carried England's dreams across the Atlantic have brought settlers to the shores of what they call the New World. The air is sharp with the scent of pine and earth, and the promise of a new life hangs heavy, like morning mist over the rivers. This is the story of England's first enduring steps into North America, where hope and hardship entwine, and the seeds of empire take root in soil both fertile and fraught. The year is 1607, and a small fleet of ships, Susan Constant, Godspeed, and Discovery, drops anchor off the coast of Virginia. The settlers, a mix of gentlemen seeking riches, laborers fleeing poverty, and adventurers chasing glory, step onto the marshy banks of the James River. They name their settlement Jamestown, in honor of their king, James I, whose Stuart crown now casts its shadow across the sea. The land they enter is alive with the rhythms of the Powhatan people, whose villages dot the forests, their lives woven into the cycles of corn, deer, and river. To the settlers, this is a land of opportunity, a blank canvas for wealth and fame. But to the Powhatan, it is home, sacred and complete. Imagine the settlers' first days, the creak of axes as they fell trees, the sweat of building crude shelters against the relentless sun. They dream of gold, inspired by Spain's conquests in Mexico and Peru, but the rivers here yield no gleaming treasures. Instead, they find hunger. The soil, unfamiliar and stubborn, resists their crops. Disease, carried by the humid air and stagnant water, creeps among them, thinning their numbers. The gentlemen, unaccustomed to labor, quarrel over leadership, while supplies dwindle. John Smith, a soldier with a quick mind and a sharper tongue, emerges as their unlikely savior. His maps and dealings with the Powhatan bring fleeting stability, but tensions simmer beneath the surface. Picture the meetings between Smith and Powhatan, the great chief Wahunsinkaw, whose presence commands respect. The Powhatan offer corn, fish, and knowledge of the land, but their generosity is cautious, born of a people who have seen strangers before. The English, in turn, offer beads, mirrors, and promises, but their hunger for land grows. Misunderstandings flare. Cultural chasms widen over gifts mistaken for tribute, boundaries crossed unwittingly. The tale of Pocahontas, the chief's daughter, weaves through these early years, not as the romantic legend later spun, but as a young woman caught between worlds, her curiosity a bridge and a burden. Her marriage to John Rolfe, a settler who cultivates tobacco, marks a fragile peace, but it is a peace built on shifting sands. Tobacco becomes Jamestown's salvation. Rolfe's experiments with the crop, sweeter and smoother than the native strains, ignite a fever. Fields bloom with the green gold leaves, and ships begin to carry them back to England, where eager merchants clamor for more. Tobacco transforms Virginia from a struggling outpost to a cornerstone of empire, its wealth drawing new settlers, men and women willing to brave the ocean for a chance at prosperity. But this prosperity comes at a cost. The Powhatan watch as their hunting grounds shrink, their rivers diverted to feed English fields. Skirmishes erupt, and blood stains the soil, a harbinger of conflicts to come. As Jamestown grows, so does England's ambition. To the north, another venture takes shape. In 1620, the Mayflower lands at Plymouth, carrying pilgrims seeking religious freedom. Their story is different, less about gold, more about faith, but no less grueling. The first winter is merciless, having their number as snow buries their hopes. Yet, like Jamestown, they endure, aided by the Wampanoag people, who teach them to plant maize and navigate the seasons. The famous Thanksgiving, a fleeting moment of shared tables, masks deeper tensions. The English bring their laws, their fences, their God, and the land begins to change under their touch. Close your eyes and see the flicker of campfires in Jamestown, the smoke curling upward like a prayer. The settlers, exhausted yet defiant, are laying the foundation of a new world, one that will anchor England's empire across the Atlantic. But they are not alone. The Powhatan, the Wampanoag, and countless others watch from the forests, their lives forever altered by these newcomers. The empire's roots are spreading, but they are nourished by both promise and pain. What will grow from these fragile beginnings? Will this new world be a beacon of hope, or will its shadows deepen into conflict? Let the night carry you forward, as the story of the British Empire unfolds. As the night wraps you in its gentle embrace, let your mind drift across the vast, shimmering expanse of the ocean, where the horizon glows with the promise of distant shores. It is the dawn of the 17th century, and while England's settlers toil in the forests of Virginia, another venture is stirring in the heart of London. The air in the city is thick with the scent of ink and ambition, as merchants gather in candlelit rooms, their voices low with dreams of wealth beyond imagining. This is the story of the East India Company, a fledgling enterprise that will grow to wield power greater than kings, planting the seeds of Britain's dominion in the East. Close your eyes, and let the creak of ships and the rustle of silk carry you to a world of spice, trade, and conquest. Picture the docks of London in 1600, where the Thames reflects the glow of lanterns swaying in the evening breeze. A group of merchants, their cloaks heavy with the damp of the river, secure a royal charter from Queen Elizabeth I. The document, sealed with wax and promise, grants them a monopoly on English trade with the East Indies, a nebulous term for the lands of Asia, where spices like nutmeg and cloves are worth more than gold. The East India Company, as they call themselves, is not merely a business, it is a bold gamble, a vessel for England's hunger to rival the Portuguese and Dutch, who already ply the spice routes with enviable success. Their ships, sturdy yet untested, set sail for shores unknown, their holds filled with wool and hope, their crews dreaming of markets where a single cargo could make a man's fortune. The journey is perilous. Imagine the sailors aboard those early vessels, their faces weathered by salt and sun, navigating seas where storms rise like vengeful spirits. The route around the Cape of Good Hope is a gauntlet of towering waves and treacherous currents, but the promise of the East drives them forward. Their destination is India, a land of ancient empires and vibrant bazaars, where Mughal emperors rule with splendor unmatched in Europe. The Mughal court, draped in silks and adorned with jewels, is a world apart from the muddy streets of London. Here, in cities like Surat and Agra, merchants barter for pepper, indigo, and cotton, their voices mingling with the calls of vendors and the clink of silver coins. The company's first voyages are tentative, their ships docking at Surat, a bustling port on India's western coast. Picture the scene. English traders, their clothes stiff with European formality, stepping onto a quay alive with color and chaos. Merchants from Persia, Arabia, and beyond haggle over piles of saffron and cinnamon, while elephants lumber through the streets, their bells jingling softly. The English, led by men like Sir Thomas Roe, seek audience with the Mughal Emperor Jahangir, whose favor is the key to trade. Roe, a diplomat with a poet's eye, describes the emperor's court as a tapestry of opulence, where peacocks strut and fountains sing. He offers gifts, mirrors, swords, and English cloth, but the Mughals, accustomed to finer treasures, are unimpressed. Yet, through persistence and flattery, Roe secures permission to establish a factory, a trading post that marks England's first foothold in India. This foothold is fragile, a speck in the vastness of the Mughal Empire, but it is a beginning. The company builds warehouses, fortified with stone and guarded by cannon, where goods flow like rivers. Cotton textiles, dyed in hues of saffron and indigo, are shipped to England, where they ignite a craze among the wealthy. Spices, too, transform English tables, turning bland stews into feasts of flavor. But trade is only the start. The company's leaders, their ledgers swollen with profit, begin to dream of more than commerce. They hire soldiers, arm their ships, and negotiate with local rulers, their ambitions creeping beyond the marketplace. In 1615, they establish a second factory at Masulipatam, and soon, their influence spreads like ink across a map. Yet, this rise is not without cost. The company's presence stirs tensions. Local merchants, once allies, grow wary as English demands increase. The Portuguese, entrenched in Goa, view the newcomers as rivals and clash with them at sea. Picture a naval skirmish off the Indian coast, where cannon smoke clouds the dawn and the cries of sailors pierce the air. The English, though outnumbered, learn quickly, their ships darting like wolves among the Portuguese galleons. These early victories embolden the company, but they also sow seeds of distrust among India's rulers, who begin to see the foreigners not as traders, but as a force to be reckoned with. As you sink deeper into the night, imagine the company's men in their outposts, their lanterns casting shadows on maps of uncharted lands. They are far from home, surrounded by a culture as rich as it is unfamiliar, their lives a delicate balance of diplomacy and daring. The Mughal Empire, vast and powerful, looms over them, yet they persist, driven by the promise of wealth and the shadow of empire. The East India Company is no longer just a merchant venture. It is a spark that will one day ignite a conflagration, reshaping India and the world. But as their ships sail back to England, laden with treasures, questions linger in the tropical air. How far will this ambition stretch? Will the company's hunger for power unite or divide the lands it touches? Let the rhythm of the waves carry you onward, as the story of the British Empire deepens. As the night folds around you like a soft blanket, let your mind sail across the Atlantic, where the turquoise waters of the Caribbean shimmer under a relentless sun. It is the mid-17th century, and the air is heavy with the scent of sugarcane and sea salt, mingling with the cries of gulls and the rhythmic creak of ships at anchor. Here, in this scattering of islands where palm trees sway and coral reefs glow beneath the waves, the British Empire is forging a new chapter. One of unimaginable wealth and unspeakable sorrow. This is the story of the Caribbean, where the pursuit of profit transforms tiny outposts into crucibles of empire, and where the human cost of ambition casts long, dark shadows. Close your eyes, and let the lapping of waves guide you into this vibrant, troubled world. Picture the island of Barbados in the 1640s, its shores fringed with white sand and its hills green with promise. English settlers, drawn by tales of opportunity, arrive in small ships, their faces etched with hope and exhaustion. They are farmers, indentured servants, and younger sons of gentry, seeking fortunes in a land far from England's damp fields. At first, they plant tobacco and cotton, crops familiar from Virginia, but the soil and climate resist their efforts. Then, a new crop takes root, sugarcane, introduced by the Dutch, who have seen its success in Brazil. The cane, tall and emerald, thrives in the Caribbean's heat, its sweet sap promising riches beyond dreams. The settlers, quick to seize the moment, transform Barbados into a patchwork of plantations, where fields stretch like green seas under the tropical sky. But sugarcane demands more than land, it demands labor, relentless and unending. The work is grueling, clearing fields, planting, cutting, and boiling the cane into sugar, molasses, and rum. Indentured servants, mostly poor Englishmen and Irishmen bound by contracts, toil under the sun, their bodies bent by heat and hardship. Their terms are harsh, 7 years of servitude for passage to the New World, but many do not survive the disease and exhaustion. As the demand for sugar soars, the planters grow desperate for workers, and their gaze turns across the Atlantic to Africa. Thus begins one of the darkest chapters of the British Empire, the transatlantic slave trade, a machine of suffering that will fuel the Caribbean's wealth. Imagine the horror of the Middle Passage, where ships, their holds packed with chained men, women, and children, cross the ocean in a journey of unimaginable cruelty. Captured from villages in West Africa, these souls are torn from their homes, their languages, their lives. The ships, like floating prisons, reek of despair, their decks stained with the anguish of those who survive the weeks at sea. In Barbados, Jamaica, and other islands, they are sold in markets, their humanity reduced to ledger entries. By the 1660s, the British have claimed Jamaica from the Spanish, its rugged hills and deep harbors becoming a hub for this brutal trade. Plantations multiply, and sugar, white gold, flows to England, sweetening tea and fattening merchant coffers. Picture a plantation at dusk, the air thick with the syrupy scent of boiling cane. Enslaved Africans, their bodies scarred by labor, work under the watchful eyes of overseers, while the planter's house, white and grand, stands atop a hill. The contrast is stark, the wealth of the few built on the suffering of the many. Yet, life on the islands is not just toil. In the quarters, away from the whip, enslaved communities forge bonds, preserving fragments of their cultures through stories, songs, and rituals. Drums echo in the night, a quiet defiance against the chains. Meanwhile, the planters, flush with wealth, mimic English lords, their tables laden with silver and imported wine, blind to the human cost of their opulence. The Caribbean becomes the empire's beating heart, its sugar fueling England's economy and its ports buzzing with trade. Ships carry rum to the American colonies, textiles to Africa, and enslaved people to the islands in a triangular trade that binds continents in a web of commerce. But this wealth breeds conflict. Pirates, drawn by the promise of plunder, haunt the Caribbean waters, their black flags snapping in the wind. Men like Henry Morgan, half pirate, half hero, raid Spanish ships and towns, their exploits blurring the line between crime and service to the crown. By 1670, Morgan is knighted, and Port Royal, Jamaica's bustling hub, is dubbed the wickedest city on earth, its taverns alive with the clink of coins and the laughter of rogues. Yet, beneath the glitter of profit, the Caribbean is a crucible of moral questions. The enslaved resist, some through quiet acts, like slowing work or preserving traditions, others through rebellion, fleeting and fierce, met with brutal reprisals. The planters, dependent on their labor, live in fear of uprisings, their grand houses ringed by unease. In England, few question the trade, dazzled by the wealth it brings. The Caribbean's sugar islands are a microcosm of empire, dazzling in their productivity, devastating in their cost. As you drift deeper into sleep, imagine the Caribbean night, where stars reflect on still waters and the wind carries whispers of resistance. The British Empire is growing, its sails catching the winds of wealth, but at what price? Will this crucible forge unity, or will its flames ignite rebellion? Let the tide pull you forward, as the story of the empire unfolds. As the night cradles you in its soft embrace, let your imagination drift to a time when the British Empire stood at its zenith, its sails catching the winds of destiny across the globe. It is the 18th century, and the air in London hums with the clatter of carriages and the buzz of ambition, as the city becomes the beating heart of a sprawling dominion. The scent of ink and parchment fills coffeehouses, where men debate trade, war, and the future of an empire that stretches from the misty shores of England to the sunlit plains of India and the bustling ports of the Caribbean. This is the story of the British Empire's golden age, a time of triumph and tension, when victories on battlefields and oceans reshaped the world, yet sowed the seeds of future challenges. Close your eyes, and let the rhythm of history guide you through this era of glory and growing unrest. Picture London in the 1750s, its skyline pierced by the spires of St. Paul's and the masts of ships along the Thames. The city is a crucible of wealth and power, its markets brimming with sugar from Jamaica, tobacco from Virginia, and silks from India. The East India Company, now a titan of trade, sends fleets to Asia, its warehouses overflowing with spices and textiles that fuel England's burgeoning wealth. In the Caribbean, plantations churn out sugar, while in North America, colonies like Massachusetts and Virginia grow in size and confidence. The empire, once a collection of scattered outposts, is knitting together, its threads of commerce and conquest binding continents under the Union Jack. At the heart of this golden age is the 7 Years' War, a global conflict that erupts in 1756, pitting Britain against France and its allies. Imagine the battlefields, from the forests of Canada to the plains of India, where red-coated soldiers march under fluttering banners. In North America, the war is fought in the shadow of ancient pines, where British forces, alongside colonial militias, clash with French troops and their indigenous allies. Picture the Siege of Quebec in 1759, where General James Wolfe scales the cliffs under moonlight, his men moving like ghosts to surprise the French. The battle on the Plains of Abraham is swift and brutal, with Wolfe's victory securing Canada for Britain, though he falls, struck down in the moment of triumph. The scene is vivid, the smoke of muskets, the cries of the wounded, and the St. Lawrence River glittering below, a witness to history. In India, the war takes a different form. The East India Company, no longer just a trading venture, flexes its military might. Picture the city of Calcutta, its streets alive with the chatter of Bengali merchants and the clink of company coins. In 1757, Robert Clive, a clerk-turned-soldier with a gambler's nerve, leads a small force against the Nawab of Bengal at Plassey. The battle is less a clash of armies than a masterstroke of diplomacy and betrayal, as Clive secures allies among the Nawab's court. Under a monsoon sky, his troops prevail, and Bengal falls under company control. The victory is a turning point, transforming the company into a territorial power, its influence spreading like ink across India's map. The Mughal emperor, once a distant sovereign, becomes a figurehead, his authority eclipsed by British ambition. Back in England, these victories are celebrated with fervor. Church bells ring, and taverns overflow with toasts to King George II and his empire. The wealth pouring in, sugar, spices, and taxes, fuels a consumer revolution. Teacups of fine porcelain, filled with tea from China, grace the tables of the gentry, while cotton from India drapes the fashionable in vibrant hues. Yet, this prosperity masks growing tensions. In the American colonies, settlers chafe under British taxes imposed to fund the war. Picture a Boston tavern, where men like Samuel Adams gather, their voices low but fierce, speaking of rights and representation. The seeds of rebellion are sprouting, nourished by the same empire that seeks to bind them. The Golden Age is not without its shadows. In India, the company's rule brings wealth to some but hardship to others. Taxes weigh heavily on Bengali farmers, and traditional industries falter under the flood of British goods. In the Caribbean, the slave trade expands, its horrors multiplying as plantations demand more labor. In London, voices like those of early abolitionists begin to whisper, their words drowned out by the clink of coins but growing louder with time. The empire is a dazzling mosaic, its pieces held together by ambition and force, but cracks are forming. The victories of the 7 Years' War have stretched Britain's reach, but they have also stretched its resources and its moral compass. As you sink deeper into the night, imagine the empire at its peak, its flags flying over distant lands, its ships cutting through oceans like knives through silk. The streets of London pulse with pride, but in the colonies, in the factories of India, in the plantations of the Caribbean, voices of discontent murmur. The Golden Age is a time of triumph, but it is also a turning point. The empire stands tall, yet its foundations tremble. What will happen when these whispers grow into cries? Will the empire hold, or will its weight pull it apart? Let the stars above guide you forward, as the story of the British Empire weaves on. As the night deepens and the world grows still, let your mind drift to the bustling streets of Boston, where the scent of tar and salt water mingles with the crackle of unrest. It is the late 18th century, and the British Empire, radiant in its golden age, faces a storm that will shake its foundations. The sun may never set on its dominions, but shadows are gathering in the American colonies, where whispers of freedom grow into shouts of defiance. This is the story of the American Revolution and the empire's resilience, a tale of loss and adaptation, as Britain turns its gaze to new horizons while grappling with the cost of its ambitions. Close your eyes, and let the distant echo of muskets and the rustle of sails carry you into this pivotal chapter. Picture Boston in 1773, its harbor aglow with the flicker of lanterns reflecting on the water. The colonies, once loyal outposts, are simmering with discontent. The 7 Years' War, though a triumph, left Britain burdened with debt, and Parliament, in its grand chambers across the ocean, seeks to recoup losses through taxes on tea, sugar, and stamps. To the colonists, these levies are an affront, imposed without their consent. In smoky taverns and crowded town halls, men and women gather, their voices rising in protest. Imagine the night of the Boston Tea Party, where colonists, disguised as Mohawk warriors, board British ships and hurl crates of tea into the harbor, the splash of cargo a defiant cry against distant rule. The water churns, dark and defiant, as the seeds of revolution take root. The response from London is swift and stern. King George III, his resolve as unyielding as the oak-paneled walls of his palace, approves measures to tighten control. Ports are closed, troops dispatched, and the colonies branded rebellious. By 1775, the tension snaps at Lexington and Concord, where the shot heard round the world sparks open conflict. Picture the green fields of Massachusetts, where colonial militias, farmers with muskets slung over homespun coats, face red-coated British regulars. The battles are chaotic, the air thick with gunpowder and fear, but the colonists, fueled by ideals of liberty, hold their ground. In Philadelphia, the Continental Congress gathers, and names like Washington, Jefferson, and Franklin weave a vision of independence that will change the world. As the war unfolds, imagine the struggle across the colonies, the frozen nights at Valley Forge, where George Washington's men shiver but endure. The victory at Saratoga, where American resolve turns the tide, the betrayal of Benedict Arnold, a wound to the patriot cause. Britain, stretched by global commitments, sends its armies to quell the rebellion, but the colonies are no longer the scattered outposts of a century ago. They are a people united, their resolve hardened by years of self-reliance. By 1781, at Yorktown, the trap closes. French allies, their ships blocking the Chesapeake, join American forces to encircle General Cornwallis. The British surrender under a gray October sky, the music of surrender haunting the air as the Empire's grip on America slips away. The Treaty of Paris in 1783 seals the loss. 13 colonies, once jewels in Britain's crown, become the United States, a new nation born from the Empire's own ambitions. In London, the news is a bitter pill. Merchants lament lost trade, politicians bicker over blame, and the streets hum with unease. Yet, the empire does not crumble. Instead, it pivots, its resilience a testament to its adaptability. Picture the mapmakers in their candlelit rooms, redrawing boundaries as Britain turns its eyes elsewhere. The loss of America, painful though it is, frees resources for other ventures, and the empire's gaze shifts to the east and the south, where new opportunities beckon. In India, the East India Company tightens its hold, its influence spreading beyond Bengal. Robert Clive's successors, men like Warren Hastings, govern with a mix of diplomacy and force, their forts rising like sentinels across the subcontinent. The company's armies, bolstered by Indian sepoys, clash with local rulers, their victories carving out territories that dwarf the American colonies. Meanwhile, a new frontier emerges in the South Pacific. In 1788, ships arrive at Botany Bay, their sails tattered from the long voyage. Here, in the land that will become Australia, Britain establishes a penal colony, a place to send its convicts and outcasts. Picture the first fleet anchoring at Sydney Cove, the red earth unfamiliar beneath English boots, the eucalyptus-scented air a world apart from London's fog. The Aboriginal peoples, whose lives are woven into the land, watch warily as these strangers build their settlement, unaware of the changes to come. As you sink deeper into the night, imagine the empire at a crossroads, its American dream shattered but its spirit unbroken. The loss of the colonies is a wound, but it is also a lesson, teaching Britain to adapt, to seek new horizons. In India, Australia, and beyond, the empire reinvents itself, its sails catching new winds. Yet, the revolution has left echoes, ideas of liberty that ripple across the globe, whispering in the ears of other subjects. The empire stands strong, but questions linger in the starlit air. Can it hold its vast dominions together? Will the ideals of freedom, born in America, spread to other lands? Let the gentle tide of history pull you forward, as the story of the British Empire continues to unfold. As the night wraps you in its velvet stillness, let your mind drift to a land of vibrant colors and ancient rhythms, where the air is thick with the scent of jasmine and the distant hum of bustling markets. It is the late 18th and early 19th centuries, and the British Empire, chastened by the loss of its American colonies, has turned its gaze to the East, where India shines as its greatest prize. The East India Company, once a mere trading venture, now wields the power of a sovereign, its influence spreading across the subcontinent like the roots of a mighty banyan tree. This is the story of India as the jewel in the crown, a tale of conquest, transformation, and the stirrings of resistance, where ambition reshapes a land and its people forever. Close your eyes, and let the whisper of silk and the clink of rupees guide you into this world of splendor and shadow. Picture Calcutta in the 1780s, a city reborn under British rule. The Hooghly River glitters under the sun, its banks lined with the company's grand buildings, white-columned mansions that mimic London's elegance, yet stand amidst palm trees and monsoon rains. The streets pulse with life, Bengali merchants in flowing dhotis, British officials in starched uniforms, and sepoys in red coats, their muskets gleaming. The East India Company, led by men like Warren Hastings, governs with a blend of pragmatism and ruthlessness. Hastings, the first Governor-General, navigates the complex tapestry of Indian politics, forging alliances with local princes and outmaneuvering rivals like the Marathas and Mysore. His tenure is marked by reforms, courts, taxes, and trade, but also by accusations of greed, as the company's coffers swell with India's wealth. The company's power grows through war and diplomacy. Imagine the battlefields of southern India, where Tipu Sultan, the Tiger of Mysore, stands defiant. His kingdom, rich with sandalwood and silk, is a bastion of resistance. Picture the siege of Seringapatam in 1799, where British cannons roar under a starlit sky, and Tipu, clad in gold-embroidered armor, fights to his last breath. His defeat opens the south to British control, and the company's map expands, dotted with forts and factories from Madras to Bombay. Yet, conquest is only part of the story. The British reshape India's economy, funneling its riches, cotton, indigo, and tea, into global markets. Villages that once wove cloth for local trade now feed Britain's textile mills, their looms silenced by imported goods. The land, fertile and vast, becomes a chessboard for profit, its people caught in the game. Life under company rule is a study in contrasts. In Calcutta, British society blooms, with balls and banquets in marble halls, where officers sip tea and dance to violins, their lives a bubble of privilege. Yet, beyond the city, Indian farmers toil under heavy taxes, their harvests claimed to fuel distant markets. The company's officials, dubbed nabobs for their newfound wealth, return to England with fortunes, buying estates and seats in Parliament. But their opulence masks a deeper transformation. Missionaries arrive, their Bibles in hand, seeking to convert souls, while scholars like William Jones study Sanskrit and Persian, uncovering India's ancient texts. This meeting of cultures is both a bridge and a chasm. British fascination with India's heritage clashes with their drive to reform it, planting seeds of change that will ripple through time. Imagine a village in Bengal, where dawn breaks over rice fields, and women in bright saris balance water jars as they walk to the river. The British introduce new laws, land ownership, taxes, and courts, that upend centuries-old traditions. Zamindars, local landlords, become agents of the company, their loyalty bought with power but strained by the demands of revenue. The old rhythms of village life falter, and whispers of discontent grow. In 1806, sepoys in Vellore mutiny, their anger sparked by new uniforms that threaten their caste and faith. The rebellion is crushed, but it is a warning, a crack in the company's armor. India, vast and diverse, is not a land easily tamed, and its people, though subdued, are not silent. The British, undeterred, press forward. By the 1830s, under Governor-General William Bentinck, reforms sweep the land. Sati, the practice of widow burning, is banned, a move hailed in London but met with unease in some Indian quarters. English becomes the language of administration. And schools teach Western ideas, training a new generation of Indians to serve the empire. Railroads begin to snake across the landscape, their iron tracks linking cities and speeding trade. Picture a steam locomotive chugging through the Punjab, its whistle piercing the quiet of villages, a symbol of progress and intrusion. India is changing, its ancient heart beating to a new rhythm, but the cost is heavy, cultural ties fray, and resentment simmers beneath the surface. As you drift deeper into the night, imagine the grandeur of the company's rule, the forts of Delhi, the bustling ports of Bombay, the shimmering Taj Mahal under moonlight, a relic of a fading Mughal past. India is the jewel in Britain's crown, its wealth and prestige unmatched, yet it is a jewel that gleams with both promise and peril. The British walk a tightrope, balancing power with the need to govern a land of millions, whose traditions and dreams are as vast as the subcontinent itself. The empire is strong, but the murmurs of resistance are growing louder. What will happen when these whispers become a roar? Will India remain the empire's pride, or will it spark the unraveling of Britain's dominion? Let the soft hum of history carry you onward, as the story of the British Empire unfolds. As the night settles around you, soft and enveloping, let your mind drift to a vast continent where the sun burns fierce and the land hums with ancient rhythms. It is the late 19th century, and the British Empire, its sails swollen with ambition, turns its gaze to Africa, a land of deserts and jungles, rivers and savannas, where empires older than England's have risen and fallen. The air is thick with the scent of dust and possibility, as European powers, driven by greed and grandeur, carve up the continent in a frenzy known as the scramble for Africa. This is the story of Britain's quest for dominion in these ancient lands, a tale of exploration, conquest, and the human cost of imperial dreams. Close your eyes, and let the distant call of drums and the rustle of palm fronds guide you into this world of triumph and tragedy. Picture London in the 1880s, its streets alive with the clatter of hansoms and the buzz of imperial fervor. In grand halls, maps of Africa are unrolled, their blank spaces a canvas for ambition. The Berlin Conference of 1884–85, a gathering of European powers, sets the stage, dividing Africa like a chessboard, with little regard for its peoples or histories. Britain, eager to secure its place, claims swathes of the continent, from the Nile's fertile banks in Egypt to the gold-rich hills of South Africa, from the humid coasts of West Africa to the highlands of Kenya. The empire's red ink spreads across the map, driven by a hunger for resources, gold, diamonds, ivory, and the strategic need to control trade routes and rivers. Imagine the explorers, men like David Livingstone, trudging through the African interior, their boots sinking into the red earth of the Zambezi Valley. Livingstone, a missionary with a wanderer's heart, seeks to map the unknown, his journals filled with tales of roaring waterfalls and bustling villages. His accounts, published in London, ignite public imagination, blending adventure with a missionary zeal to civilize the continent. Yet, exploration paves the way for conquest. Behind the explorers come traders, soldiers, and administrators, their ambitions backed by Maxim guns and steamships. In West Africa, the Royal Niger Company, chartered by the Crown, secures trading posts along the Niger River, its agents bartering for palm oil and ivory while planting British flags in the soil. The story of South Africa is one of conflict and wealth. Picture the rolling veldt, where Boer settlers, descendants of Dutch colonists, clash with British ambitions. The discovery of diamonds in Kimberley in 1867 and gold in the Transvaal in 1886 sets the stage for a bitter struggle. Men like Cecil Rhodes, a visionary with a ruthless streak, dream of a British Africa, from Cape to Cairo. Rhodes, his eyes gleaming with imperial zeal, builds fortunes through mining and maneuvers to outwit the Boers. The Boer Wars, erupting in 1899, are brutal. Guerrilla tactics meet British firepower, and the landscape is scarred by battles and scorched earth. Imagine a Boer farmstead burning under a crimson sky, its inhabitants herded into camps, a grim foreshadowing of the Empire's willingness to sacrifice lives for control. By 1902, Britain prevails, and South Africa becomes a cornerstone of its African empire, its mines fueling London's wealth. In East Africa, the story is different but no less intense. Picture the highlands of Kenya, where the Maasai herd cattle under acacia trees, their lives woven into the rhythms of the land. British settlers arrive, drawn by fertile soil and the promise of a new Eden. The Uganda Railway, a marvel of engineering, snakes from Mombasa to Lake Victoria, its iron tracks cutting through jungles and plains. But progress comes at a cost. The land is parceled out to white settlers, and the Maasai and Kikuyu are pushed to the margins, their grazing ground shrinking. In villages, elders whisper of a world upended, their spears no match for British rifles. Yet, resistance simmers, small acts of defiance, like refusing to pay taxes or hiding crops, signal a spirit unbroken. In Egypt, Britain's grip tightens through a different path. The Suez Canal, opened in 1869, is the empire's lifeline to India, its waters a highway for trade and power. When Egypt's ruler, burdened by debt, falters, Britain seizes control in 1882, its troops occupying Cairo under the guise of protection. Imagine the Nile at dusk, its waters reflecting the minarets of mosques, as British officers in pith helmets oversee a land that is theirs in name but never in spirit. The Egyptian people, proud of their ancient heritage, chafe under foreign rule, their discontent a quiet undercurrent that will one day swell. The scramble for Africa is a tapestry of contrasts, wealth and exploitation, progress and pain. Railways and telegraphs link the continent to the world, but they also bind it to Britain's will. Missionaries build schools, spreading literacy, yet their teachings often erase local beliefs. Administrators draw borders, ignoring tribes and histories, sowing seeds of future conflict. The African people, Zulu, Ashanti, Kikuyu, and countless others, navigate this new world, some collaborating, others resisting, all adapting to a tide they cannot stem. In London, the empire's triumphs are celebrated with exhibitions and parades, but few see the cost, the villages displaced, the cultures fractured, the lives lost to disease and war. As you sink deeper into the night, imagine the African continent under a starlit sky, its rivers flowing like veins of memory. The British Empire, at its peak, claims vast swathes of this land, its flags fluttering over forts and mines. Yet, beneath the surface, voices murmur, songs of resistance, stories of heritage, dreams of freedom. The empire is mighty, but its hold is not eternal. What will happen when these voices rise? Will Africa remain a prize, or will it reclaim its own destiny? Let the gentle pulse of history carry you forward, as the story of the British Empire unfolds. As the night enfolds you in its tranquil embrace, let your mind wander to a world where the British Empire, once a colossus straddling continents, begins to feel the weight of its own vastness. It is the early 20th century, and the air carries the faint hum of change, like the distant rumble of a storm gathering on the horizon. The empire's flags still flutter over palm-fringed colonies and dusty outposts, from the bustling streets of Bombay to the windswept plains of Kenya. Yet, beneath the surface, cracks are forming, strains of war, voices of dissent, and the slow unraveling of a dominion that once seemed eternal. This is the story of the empire's twilight, a time when the sun begins to dip, casting long shadows over a world forever changed. Close your eyes, and let the soft murmur of history guide you through this era of transformation and reckoning. Picture London in 1914, its grand avenues lined with statues of imperial heroes, their bronze gazes fixed on a world at war. The Great War, as it will come to be known, is a crucible for the empire, drawing in men and resources from every corner of its dominion. From the fields of Flanders to the deserts of Mesopotamia, soldiers from India, Australia, Canada, and Africa march under the Union Jack, their boots sinking into mud and sand. Imagine an Indian sepoy, his turban a splash of color against the grey trenches, fighting for a crown he has never seen. In Australia, young men from Sydney and Melbourne sail to Gallipoli, their courage etched in the cliffs where so many fall. The empire's strength is its unity, but the war's toll is staggering. Hundreds of thousands dead, economies strained, and a generation scarred. The war reshapes the empire's heart. In London, the War Office hums with urgency, its maps marked with fronts and losses. The colonies pour in resources, wheat from Canada, wool from New Zealand, tea from Ceylon, but the cost is more than material. In India, the war fuels a growing sense of identity. Leaders like Mahatma Gandhi, who once rallied Indians to support the war effort, now speak of self-rule, their voices soft but unyielding. Picture a gathering in Amritsar in 1919, where thousands assemble, their banners calling for freedom. The British response is brutal, the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, where troops fire on an unarmed crowd, leaves hundreds dead, the blood staining the earth a symbol of imperial overreach. The news ripples across India, turning whispers of discontent into a chorus of defiance. In Africa, too, the war sows seeds of change. Imagine a Kenyan village, its men conscripted to carry supplies through jungles, their absence leaving fields untended. The war's end brings no respite, returning soldiers, exposed to ideas of equality in the trenches, question the colonial order. In Nigeria and the Gold Coast, educated elites form congresses, their speeches blending Western ideals with African pride. The empire, stretched thin by war, struggles to maintain its grip, its administrators caught between promises of reform and the instinct to control. The Suez Canal, still a lifeline to India, sees British troops guarding its banks, but Egypt's nationalists, led by figures like Saad Zaghloul, demand independence, their protests echoing through Cairo's streets. The interwar years are a time of uneasy calm. In London, the 1926 Imperial Conference redefines the empire, granting dominions like Canada and Australia greater autonomy, a nod to their sacrifices. The Statute of Westminster in 1931 formalizes this shift, creating the Commonwealth, a family of nations bound by choice, not force. Yet, this rebranding cannot mask the empire's strains. In Ireland, the fight for independence culminates in 1922 with the creation of the Irish Free State, a partial victory that leaves scars of partition. Picture Dublin streets, where joy and sorrow mingle, as the Irish tricolour rises alongside lingering British influence. The empire is no longer an unyielding monolith, it is a tapestry fraying at the edges. The Second World War, erupting in 1939, is the empire's final trial. Once again, its colonies rally. Indian soldiers fight in North Africa, Australians in the Pacific, West Africans in Burma. But the war's devastation weakens Britain's resolve. Picture London under the Blitz, its skies lit by bombs, its people enduring with grim determination. The empire's resources are drained, its economy battered. In Asia, Japan's lightning advance captures Singapore in 1942, a humiliating blow to British prestige. The fall of this Gibraltar of the East is a symbol of vulnerability, its surrender broadcast across a world watching the empire falter. As the war ends in 1945, the world has changed. America and the Soviet Union emerge as superpowers, their influence eclipsing Britain's. In India, the push for independence grows unstoppable. Gandhi's non-violent marches, joined by millions, fill the streets with hope and defiance. In 1947, the British agree to leave, but the partition of India into two nations, India and Pakistan, unleashes a tide of violence, as millions flee across new borders, their lives upended by lines drawn in haste. Picture a train winding through the Punjab, its carriages packed with refugees, their faces etched with loss. The empire's jewel is free, but at a cost no one could foresee. As you drift deeper into the night, imagine the empire at its twilight, its flags lowering over forts and palaces. The world it shaped is stirring, its peoples claiming their voices. The sun, once said never to set, is dipping below the horizon, casting a glow that is both beautiful and fleeting. The empire's legacy is vast, but its time is waning. What will rise in its place? Will the dreams of freedom reshape the world, or will new struggles emerge from the shadows? Let the gentle tide of history carry you forward, as the story of the British Empire nears its close. As the night cradles you in its serene embrace, let your mind drift across a world transformed, where the echoes of an empire linger like the fading notes of a distant song. It is the mid-20th century, and the British Empire, once a titan that spanned oceans and continents, is dissolving into the tides of history. The air is soft with the promise of new beginnings, yet heavy with the weight of a past that shaped nations, cultures, and lives. From the bustling streets of London to the vibrant markets of Lagos, from the quiet hills of New Zealand to the sunlit shores of Jamaica, the empire's legacy endures, a tapestry of triumph, tragedy, and transformation. This is the story of the empire's final days and the enduring imprint it left on the world, a tale to carry you gently into sleep. Close your eyes, and let the whispers of history guide you through this closing chapter. Picture London in 1947, its grand edifices scarred by war, its people weary yet resolute. The Second World War has left Britain battered, its coffers drained, its global influence waning. The empire, stretched across a quarter of the globe, is no longer sustainable. In India, the jewel in the crown, independence dawns with a bittersweet dawn. On August 15, 1947, Jawaharlal Nehru raises the flag of a free India, his voice echoing over Delhi's Red Fort, speaking of a tryst with destiny. But the joy is tempered by sorrow. The partition, carving India and Pakistan from a shared land, unleashes a torrent of displacement. Millions cross borders, their lives torn apart by violence and loss. Imagine a dusty road in Punjab, where families trudge with bundles of belongings, their eyes haunted by the homes they've left behind. The empire's departure is a liberation, but its scars run deep. The tide of independence sweeps across the empire. In Africa, the winds of change blow fiercely. Picture Ghana in 1957, where Kwame Nkrumah, a son of the Gold Coast, stands before cheering crowds, declaring freedom from British rule. His words, bold and hopeful, inspire a continent. Nigeria follows in 1960, Kenya in 1963, and others in a cascade of new nations. Each flag raised is a symbol of pride, yet the borders drawn by colonial pens, often ignoring tribes and histories, sow seeds of conflict. In Kenya, the Mau Mau uprising, a bloody struggle against British settlers, lingers in memory, its wounds a reminder of the cost of resistance. The empire's exit is not always graceful, it leaves behind both opportunity and unrest, a legacy of progress entwined with division. In the Caribbean, independence comes with a rhythm of its own. Jamaica and Trinidad gained freedom in 1962, their streets alive with the beat of steel drums and the colors of new flags. Yet, the islands bear the marks of empire, economies shaped by sugar and slavery, cultures blended from African, Indian, and European roots. Imagine a market in Kingston, where vendors sell mangoes and callaloo, their voices carrying the cadence of a Creole shaped by centuries of contact. The British leave, but their language, laws, and traditions remain, woven into the fabric of these nations, a testament to the empire's enduring influence. The Commonwealth emerges as the empire's heir, a voluntary union of nations bound by history and choice. Picture a gathering in London in 1949, where leaders from Canada, Australia, India, and beyond sit as equals, their shared past a bridge to a new future. The Commonwealth is no empire, it lacks the coercion of colonial rule. But it carries forward ties of trade, culture, and sport. Cricket matches in Melbourne, literary festivals in Lagos, and scholarships in London keep the connections alive, a softer echo of imperial unity. Yet, the Commonwealth is also a space for reckoning, where former colonies voice their histories, their triumphs, and their grievances. The empire's legacy is not just political, it is cultural, economic, and human. English, the empire's tongue, becomes a global language, spoken in courtrooms in Nairobi, classrooms in Singapore, and boardrooms in Mumbai. Railways, built to serve colonial trade, still rumble across India and Africa, their tracks a reminder of progress and exploitation. Legal systems, from property laws to parliamentary models, shape new nations, though often adapted to local needs. Yet, the empire's darker gifts, economic inequality, racial hierarchies, and divided borders, persist, challenging the world it left behind. Imagine a classroom in modern-day South Africa, where students debate apartheid's roots in colonial policies, their voices a bridge between past and present. As you sink deeper into the night, picture the world the empire shaped, a globe connected by trade and ideas, yet marked by the struggles of those who lived under its rule. In London, statues of Victoria and Clive stand silent, their stories debated in a city now home to people from every corner of the former empire. The Windrush generation, arriving from the Caribbean in 1948, brings vibrancy to Britain, their lives a reminder that empire was not just something Britain did to the world, but something the world did to Britain. The legacy is complex, roads and schools alongside displacement and loss, unity alongside division. The British Empire, once a colossus, has faded, its sun setting over distant horizons. Yet, its echoes remain, in the languages we speak, the borders we cross, the stories we tell. As you drift towards sleep, imagine the world it left behind, a mosaic of nations forging their own paths, yet forever touched by the empire's hand. What will the future hold for these lands, these people, these dreams? Will the legacy of empire bind or divide? Let the gentle tide of history carry you into slumber, as the story of the British Empire finds its rest. As the night wraps you in its final, soothing embrace, let your mind linger on the vast tapestry of the British Empire, its threads stretching across centuries and continents, now gently fading into the quiet of history. The stars above seem to whisper the last echoes of a story that began with the creak of ships and the dreams of explorers, grew through conquest and commerce, and dissolved in the rising voices of freedom. From the windswept cliffs of Dover to the vibrant markets of Delhi, from the sunlit shores of Jamaica to the rugged outback of Australia, the empire's legacy is a mosaic of human ambition, resilience, and reckoning. Its sun has set, but its light lingers, casting shadows and reflections that shape the world we know today. As you drift towards sleep, let these final thoughts carry you, like a soft current, into a place of rest and reflection. Picture the world in the wake of empire, a globe transformed by its touch. In London, the Thames flows as it always has, but now it reflects a city where voices from every corner of the former empire, India, Nigeria, Canada, and beyond, mingle in markets, schools, and streets. The English language, once a tool of colonial rule, is now a bridge, spoken in 1,000 accents, from the lilt of the Caribbean to the cadence of South Asia. Railways still rumble across the plains of India, their tracks laid by imperial hands but now carrying the dreams of 1 billion people. In Africa, nations born from colonial borders navigate their futures, their histories a blend of pride and pain, their cultures vibrant with the resilience of those who endured. The Commonwealth, a family of nations, gathers under shared skies, its meetings a reminder that history binds even as it divides. Yet, the empire's legacy is not just in maps or institutions, it is in the stories of people. Imagine a family in Kingston, Jamaica, gathered around a table, their laughter flavored by a Creole that weaves African, British, and Indian roots. Picture a student in Nairobi, reading Shakespeare but dreaming in Swahili, her aspirations shaped by a world both connected and divided by empire. In Britain, the Windrush generation and their descendants have reshaped the nation, their music, food, and voices a living testament to the empire's two-way flow. The legacy is complex. Schools and hospitals stand alongside memories of displacement, legal systems alongside borders that fractured tribes. It is a story of progress and loss, of unity and struggle, a mirror held up to humanity's capacity for both creation and destruction. As you sink deeper into the night, reflect on what this story means. The British Empire was not just a chapter of history, it was a force that reshaped the globe, leaving behind a world more connected, yet marked by the challenges of its making. Its triumphs built cities and cultures, but its shadows, exploitation, division, and resistance, remind us of the cost of power. This tale, told through the centuries, is a lullaby of sorts, a reminder that history is not just the past but a living thread that weaves through our present, guiding us toward a future we must shape with care. Now, as your eyes grow heavy and the world fades, I invite you to carry this story with you, not just into sleep, but into your waking hours. If this journey through the British Empire has stirred your curiosity, soothed your mind, or sparked a moment of wonder, I'd love for you to join me again. Subscribe to my channel, where we explore more tales of history, crafted to calm and inspire, perfect for bedtime or quiet reflection. Click that notification bell so you never miss a new story, and share this video with someone who loves to drift into the past as they drift into sleep. Leave a comment below. Tell me which part of the Empire's saga moved you most, or share a story from your own heritage that echoes its legacy. Your voice is part of this history, too. Thank you for letting me, Sherry, be your guide through the rise and fall of the British Empire. As the stars shine above, may your dreams be filled with the whispers of distant shores, the courage of those who shaped the world, and the hope of a future built on understanding. Sleep well, and until our next journey, good night.